This one actually could fool more people than you'd think because it starts off as real.
Generally speaking, how can somebody tell if something is AI or not?
Unfortunately, there is no one magic bullet to solve the AI problem anymore, but there are some common tells, such as audio not matching the situation. I'm not talking about looking at if their lips are moving correctly, but more about, are they just saying something that is unnatural and kind of absurd because the AI video generators aren't following our real life world and they don't understand the complex social interactions that we just intuitively get. And then I would look for things in the background. I would look at text and see if that is rendering correctly, or if that's being displayed in a very, kind of jarbled way. There's a bunch of different ways to figure it out. But, then I say all that, and then you get a high quality deep fake that might have almost none of those things, right? So that's why there is no silver bullet. But if you really go to following trusted sources, especially accredited news organizations when it really, really matters because they're going to be verifying their media before they publish it, then you're at least going to be able to function. But I, at this point, would probably make the default assumption that if you're seeing something that's a little bit too good to be true on social media, you should probably step back and ask if it could be completely AI generated because they look really realistic right now.
I guess, what do you think kind of is the public mindset right now? Like, how do you feel like people are viewing all of this?
I think that we're going through an upheaval of social media and how we use it. I mean, if we just, zoom out, the social media companies as they have existed is a very, very short time of history, even of modern internet history. We haven't had Instagram for that long. We haven't had Facebook for that long. I think that AI media may legitimately collapse how we use these entirely. What I hope happens is that people either stop using the social media platforms as they are, which is trying to stop treating them like reality, get back to your real life a little bit more than you currently are now, and or the social media platforms start developing some pretty big tools to try to help people solve this. I have less faith that that's going to happen than I think many in the tech community do, just because I think the Rubicon is already crossed.
Is it just a consequence of my algorithm, or do you feel like we've been flooded with this stuff recently?
No, it's everyone's algorithm. If you don't think that you have AI in your algorithm, then you're just being tricked by it. When I look at feeds from any generation, this is the case. There are AI videos in the youngest algorithms. There are AI videos in Gen Z, though from what I can tell, oftentimes they're a little bit more aware of when they're watching what we would call AI slop. Gen X, Boomer generation. I mean, it is across all feeds, and this is because our social media algorithms are tuned for engagement above all else, and AI is very good at engaging. So it's just, there are very few corners of the internet where some person hasn't figured out how to use AI in order to really engage that audience through the algorithm. You'd think, for example, let me give an example. You'd think that sports would be immune because there aren't AI sports right now, but AI generated press conferences, that's a thing. AI generated news about athletes and coaches, massive thing on Facebook.
Yeah, and you mentioned the idea that it's all focused on engagement, and I feel like those extra couple of seconds that I spend trying to figure out if that thing is real or not then boosts my engagement just enough that, like, it's a self-replicating cycle. Even though I don't want anything to do with it, the simple extra couple seconds of me figuring out if it's AI or not is enough to then flood my feed with it.
I think that you just touched on what is one of the biggest algorithmic exploits of AI, which is that even if you know how to spot AI, it takes a few seconds to detect it. And little look behind the curtain, the 3-second or 10-second view on short form algorithms, especially like TikTok or Instagram, is very important. If you don't swipe away right away, that's a positive signal to the Instagram algorithm that I like what I'm seeing here.
Is this, though, from what you've seen, are most of the things that we're seeing kind of harmless fun / annoyances, or is some of this stuff more nefarious, manipulative?
I don't think that the harmless stuff can very easily be separated from the harmful stuff, because when like the fabric of your feed has changed so much, and once you become aware of that, it generally sows distrust in everything. And that's what I'm seeing. I get sent, because of my position, and for reference, I'm not trying to number drop or anything, I have somewhere around 800,000 total followers at this point, or subscribers. And so I get sent a ton of videos, and the majority of these videos are real now. So that's pretty startling, I think, is that people just don't trust what they see in general.
I know what you mean, right? Whether it's the harmless video of the dog or some kind of political propaganda, so to speak, either way, it erodes the trust, and that whole thing is a problem.
So if you're looking for ways that it could be politically harmful, I think deepfakes is what most people go to. But I think that these alternate reality versions of AI are what scares me a little bit more, because this isn't a solvable problem. So let's say you are a person who really, really wants there to be like a law against pineapple on pizza. You can create fake rallies of people with signs like "no pineapple on pizza" outside of the state house in Missouri or whatever. Like you can do that relatively easily. Now, a lot of those AI videos right now aren't going to be as convincing as they could be to convince a large swath of the population. But you might be able to convince 20 to 25% of people that there actually was a rally in Missouri outside of the state house where a bunch of people were protesting against pineapple on pizza. Pineapple on pizza is divisive, but not politically. Now you stick that into a political, version here, and a single person can spin up, as many accounts as they can of fake people talking about how much pineapple on pizza should be illegal, and that's really where the threat is, because the technical solutions to that are non-existent.
Who's creating this stuff? Like, who's doing this?
Just people who want engagement, oftentimes, or people who want to make money. The most nefarious regular ones are oftentimes scams selling fake products. So there are a lot of like fake health gurus out there who use AI to, well, the person behind the fake health gurus is the better way to put it, where they create this fake health guru, make a bunch of AI videos through a various range of types of AI video technologies. Some of them I call AI, but they're not really AI. They may be a little bit, there's nothing intelligent about them per se. They're just like a brute force video synthesizer. And the output of this is good enough to fool a decent number of people, and then they sell an ebook that doesn't exist. I've gotten a lot of these messages. That's a non-politically harmful way to use AI, but it's still a harmful way to use AI, and the person just pockets the difference and walks out. A lot of people use AI to generate what we would call AI slop, which is really just engagement bait that is maybe not very believable, but engaging and believable to some part of the population. They might sell their channel later. They might try to link you out to another website where they are collecting ad revenue. There are a ton of ways to do this, but the vast majority of people out there are just using AI to get some attention and hopefully make some money off of that attention. And that's just the normal playbook at this point.
Have you seen any kind of more coordinated efforts to really push a political propaganda or anything like that?
There are political messages that are just so resonant and I guess centrally directed from the current political administration in the United States, where they've already shown their ability and desire to use AI for some sloppy propaganda, and their followers will just hop on that train, so it's like you don't necessarily need a political person to say everyone start making AI media. Like if they're making AI media, you can too. It's a signal. So I'm seeing a lot of that, and I give the Trump administration as an example, but it is happening other places too, and this is a worldwide issue. Having said that, I do think that there's a particular penchant on that side of the political aisle right now to create a lot of noise in social media in a way that is like, I see a lot of AI video on all sides of the political aisle, but the violence of some of what's coming out right now is particularly startling. So I mean, I'll just say that. And the other thing that's happened recently, which isn't directly related to your question, but I think is notable here, is what's happening on X and with their AI right now is very, very startling. So what happened here is X through Grok AI, which, I mean, if people are on internet familiar, X is formerly Twitter, Grok is their AI generator. They released a quote feature where you can AI generate photos off of a thread. So if someone posts a photo to X, you can reply to their photo and say, "Hey Grok, generate a photo of this person without their clothes on." And that's been happening a ton. That is not a coordinated thing. It's not like a ton of people decided that they were going to all, meet up and talk about publicly shaming a ton of people. But the platform incentivized them to do this.
What are social media platforms doing about this? Do they seem to be okay with it, or do they want to try to put a stop to it?
Well, the social media platforms are also generating AI, just to be clear. So I wouldn't call them innocent bystanders here. For example, YouTube has a massive AI problem. They also make one of the most popular AI generators. So it's hard for them to claim that they're just being affected by this negatively. They do, by the policy, require creators to label AI generated media as AI generated. They are not enforcing that. Most creators do not label it. They have, so when I say they, I can give TikTok and Instagram and maybe Facebook some credit here, to where if someone posts a file that has metadata or data inside the file that says that it is probably AI generated, automated tools may label that it is AI generated, but that's a relatively low bar. Should just be kind of table stakes. A lot of the AI generators don't do that. So they're taking the easy wins, which maybe covers 2% of everything out there. And, that's the strategy that they're taking right now. I don't have the data they have to see how much AI is out there that they aren't labeling. But the data that I'm seeing is that most media on most social media platforms is not labeled AI when it should be. That's technically against the rules, but they are not enforcing it.
Do you think that will change relatively recently?
I mean, it has to, something has to change. I don't know what's going to change. Either they're going to change, or people are going to start using their platforms much differently. It seems like an impossible thing to continue indefinitely. So I think the rule is, if something's impossible to continue indefinitely, it will not. So something's going to change, and I sure hope it's the platforms implementing some more changes. But I also don't want to stand up for them and just say, like, I don't necessarily trust them to solve the problem right now. I don't think that they know how to solve this problem either. So it is an open question.
Yeah, it's kind of, how can we cut down on the thing that we're also encouraging? Which doesn't, right? Like that math doesn't math.
Exactly.
I would say that for me, I would look at stuff, and now when I can't, as I feel more and more like I can't tell what's real or not, I'm not looking at any of this.
And I think just to say that the reason that the social media companies have these algorithms is because they generate more money for them. Like, engagement is easier to sell ads next to. And if it goes back to more of a subscriber model, a lot of the business practices that they've built up don't really hold up as well as they did. So I think it's a real whether it is like how they sell ads. A lot of these companies own their own ad networks. Like Google and Facebook make their money on ads. I mean, so does TikTok, but they don't have the same level of ad network that Google and Facebook do. I mean, you know, if a lot of the content next to it becomes AI generated, I think that it presents a legitimate business problem for them. So if it starts hurting their pocketbooks, I think that they're more likely to create solutions. But those solutions might run counter to their own ad networks because they might just have to focus more on subscribers, and the subscriber based businesses don't make platforms as much money.
Okay. Can we do this? Let me share my screen. How could somebody tell if this is AI besides the fact the simple premise looks ridiculous? And for people who are only listening, this is an armadillo carrying a capybara across the roadway, which are two animals that don't live in the same place, I don't think. But still, like, besides the ridiculousness of this setup, how would somebody be able to tell if this is AI?
Okay, the first thing is don't dismiss the ridiculousness of the scenario, which I know, like, that's the primary thing, is that you cannot address the okay. Having said that, based on the quality of this video and what it's here to generate, I, as an AI person, understand that this was probably created by a model called Sora 2 by OpenAI. And I know that a characteristic of Sora 2 is what is called noise. This isn't like audible noise, but visual noise. And luckily for me, there are a ton of textures in this video, and that's where a lot of this noise is going to be seen. And in the textures here, in the grass, for example, the grass seems to be wobbling around quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
That is textural noise from the AI processing. The other thing that stands out to me is the camera is quite floaty and seems to kind of scroll across the dashboard for infinitely long. Like, it seems like right about now you should see a pillar, but we don't see a pillar. It just keeps scrolling because the perspective isn't tied to anything real.
Yeah, like the dashboard is endless.
Exactly. And I'm sure, again, there would be many other things. Like, I'm sure that's not what a real armadillo looks like, and their sizes are probably wrong. And there are probably a bunch of things like that I could pick out. But what I would start with here is the noise in the grass and the textures and the perspective both feel very off to me.
So this is one that made the rounds after what happened in Venezuela. I saw a lot of these. And this to me seemed to be the more political propaganda version of AI. This is for people just listening. These are supposedly people in Venezuela crying with joy about what happened in Venezuela. What kind of gives this away to you is?
The first thing I would say is the quality is awful. So it's very, very difficult to tell. Having said that, the first video, the people in the background seem to be quite mangled. Like, their faces are incredibly blurry, but also don't look like real people to me.
Yeah, I see what you're talking about. Yeah. They don't. It doesn't look right. It looks like somebody, like a mismatched background.
Correct, especially for that older woman. This next video with the gentleman walking through the streets, I think, could be real, but again, the quality is so bad, it's hard to tell. Same with the video of the second gentleman in the streets. That actually looks real to me based on what I'm seeing in the power lines. And then there's another old lady. It's just such awful quality. I can't tell, honestly. This is when, so what I would do here is I would probably realize that this is like a ripped version, whether it's AI or not. I don't I don't think that this creator was the one who made it. And so I would need to do some searching to figure out where it came from. Because I think even in the example where I said I feel like that first video was AI, I would need higher quality to determine if it was just a very, very compressed real video with awful sound quality, rather than a fully AI generated one. So I wouldn't be able to rule it out. And this actually happened to me this weekend where I found a video that I thought that I found the original source. I thought it was AI, and then I came to understand that I actually had not found the original source. And without that original source, it basically goes through so many layers of video compression and worsening the quality that you don't really have enough information to go on. So what I would say, based on what you're showing me here, this might be the lesson here, is that I would not trust this at all, because at the very least it is reposted out of context. You don't know if they're even talking about the event that's happening right now. They might be talking about a different event. You don't know if it was AI generated or if it's real, because we don't know who made this video and why they made it. It could even be real people who are staging something to get more views. And this isn't like a real reflection of how a Venezuelan would act, right? So you have a bunch of different vectors here that makes it hard to tell if you should trust this or not.
This one I really had to look at a couple of times. I mean, like, oh, is that real?
Here, I would start by understanding that security camera footage, dash cam footage, body cameras, a lot of these are easier to create with AI because we don't expect the quality to be that good. This is a great example where I mentioned in the first video all of the noise and wobble. That is something that stands out to me here, is especially in the start of the video, the leaves appear to be shifting, and I can also see a grid texture in those leaves, where we actually, that's the frequency. There's a certain frequency of generation that's happening there that you can see. It happens on average like 6 times a second, I believe. So I'd have to look at that a little bit more closely. The avalanche snow moves impossibly fast. I mean, it is just let me look here. Yeah, I mean, avalanches move quickly, but I mean, I don't think they move quite that quickly. And also with the amount of snow that piled in there, with that amount of velocity, you would expect that the scene would have changed much more than it did. I'd expect to see a lot more snow after it.
Right, like the bear's footprints shouldn't still be there after the massive wall of snow covers the bear up.
Exactly. That's a perfect example. And this is where I'd go to, if there was someone who really knows how bears work or how avalanches look, this would stick out to them immediately. Like, there's just no way this would happen. As an AI video person, I'm looking at all these fine details and the physics of things, but if you, for example, are a doctor, you're going to pick out AI videos that use medical scams really quickly because none of the medical equipment's going to look right. So this is a good example of, if you don't know much about bears or avalanches, maybe this looks more real to you. But if you just take a step back, you realize that there are some technical tells that can give it to you, or you can just think about how snow works.
This is one that, like, to me, this seems more like, oh, harmless fun. This is after the sports AI now.
This one actually could fool more people than you'd think, because it starts off as real, and then has a cut in the middle where it changes to AI, where the person who made this video took a frame from the real video and fed it into an AI generator and said, start here. So the first thing that really sticks out to me is when that happens, a lot of other people's actions change dramatically. The colors change a little bit. People freeze in the background. That no longer looks like Ben Johnson, the head coach of the Chicago Bears. So this is a harmless example relatively of something that actually tricks people all the time, which is if you take a cut in the middle of a video, it's more likely to trick more people.
To kind of wrap this up, like, where do you think all this goes? Like, what do you think happens because of all of this? Is there changes, or is this the new normal?
I don't think this is the new norm, but I'm not optimistic that you're going to be using social media the same way in 2 years. I don't like to make predictions, but I do know that this can't continue. And you know, with all of the destabilizing things happening right now, it just seems like there is a bigger picture here about like how we consume and disseminate information that is wrapped up to how AI generation factors into that. And until we really deal with how we're spending time on social media as a whole, like I just don't think that we're going to get to a good point with AI video. And yeah, I don't have a very optimistic view of it, honestly. I think for the next 2 years, it's going to be very, very destabilizing.
That's pretty much all the questions I got. Is there kind of people want to learn more about you? What's coming up next for you? Where can people find you? That kind of stuff.
I appreciate it. Right now, my tags are at Showtools AI everywhere, though I am going to be changing that soon as this becomes a longer term problem that I feel like I have a way to help solve. But you know, I don't like self-promoting too much, so you won't see me doing too much of that. But right now, if you want to find me, go to at Showtools AI, and I help people figure out how to digest the world around them when it comes to spending time online, which is becoming a very difficult thing to do.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Profoundly Pointless. From society and sexuality to science and sports, every week we explore something new from a side of life you may never have heard of. Subscribe if you're interested. There's a playlist, I think, on the right if you want to see more videos like this. Someday, I'm going to finish painting that wall. And just for the record, I'm not orange. I just don't know how to fix this. But thanks for checking out the show. Would love to hear from you. Okay, I should stop. Stop. There it is.